From the WATE.com Digital Center, answering your legal questions. This is Ask Isaacs. Now, here's Lori Tucker and attorney Greg Isaacs.
Everybody, thank you for joining us today. I'm with our legal analyst, Greg Isaacs, and our executive producer, Jeff McClain, and we are talking about something that has been on so many minds. So many people are online, going down the rabbit hole, if you will, to find out the latest on Riley Strain, the 22-year-old Missouri college student who just disappeared in Nashville. He's been gone now for 12 days. There's his picture. We also have, the security video that we've been showing you over and over, showing him really lurching along the streets of downtown Nashville after being kicked out of Luke Bryan's bar. You see him right there, just crossing that closed sign, and you can tell
head's kind of
he's
down,
not doing
bent over
well.
Posture, but he's still moving.
He's still moving.
Yeah.
And there are different areas where we see him, and look, he
Definitely
kind of goes
appears
back,
confused.
doesn't know where he is, and he was actually walking away from the hotel where they were staying. So, Greg, we brought you in. At one point he's running there, so all kinds of different things, and then he again disappears. His family immediately went to Nashville, trying to find answers. Obviously, everybody's so concerned. Greg, let's talk about culpability here. He left the bar after being kicked out because he didn't match the code of conduct that they have.
Yes.
But the bar also said, we only served him one serving of alcohol and 2 waters.
Right.
What does that mean?
Well, it raises a whole spectrum of issues, and when you look at those, and that's a series of different cams. You've got a shot from the bar, you've got shots from what appears to be a street cam. Some are actually body cams that were pulled by officers, and it's really remarkable that one of the police officers that could not walk back, that he encountered Strain that night, said he didn't appear intoxicated. When it's apparent that he could barely walk at times. It was obviously unsteady on his feet. But let's talk about alcohol liability, patrons, bars, etc. And it's a lot different than most people think. Tennessee is one of 43 states that have a dram shop statute. And what does that mean? A bar cannot be liable for serving or furnishing alcohol unless there are 3 things. 1, you serve someone that is obviously intoxicated. 2, you serve someone that is a minor. And 3, you have to prove that the furnishing of alcohol was the proximate cause of an injury to a third party, not
you.
yourself,
Not
not
you.
you. So, under Tennessee law, we have comparative fault. And basically, if you're partly to blame, and let's say 51 to 49, then you could not recover in a case for negligence. And, that's why in Tennessee, unless there is some gross negligence or someone assumes a duty, there is not first party liability for a business or a social host unless there is some extreme negligence.
Well, let's talk about that. The liability when it comes to duty of care. That's something we almost always talk about in liability cases. And this dram shop law, it is in all likelihood to protect the bar itself. What is a bartender, bouncer? What is their duty of care to the patron?
Jeff, that's a good question, and a lot of people are not going to like the answer because you basically do not have a duty of care that's beyond reasonable care. The only way that you can incur more liability is to assume a duty. Now think about that, that's counterintuitive. If you, for example, you're the bartender, you call a cab for one person, or you take the keys of one patron and you don't call a cab for the next one, you don't take the keys for the rest of them, then you've assumed a duty and you've breached it and you could be liable.
Right.
So that's where you have to be very, very careful. Now, there have been successful cases with first-party liability, but that's when you serve someone that is visibly in alcohol shock or poisoning, they're throwing up. You can see very objective signs, but again, that has to be gross negligence. But, here's the thing that's troublesome to me. And again, this is coming from a compilation of media reports, witness statements. Typically when you're with a group, you feel safe. As a parent, when my kids are saying the group is going here or there, there's a level of comfort because everybody has each other's backs in theory. But, and when you see someone being tossed from a bar, asked to leave a bar for the code of conduct, typically the friends go out and say, hey, I've got it, leave him or her alone and let's go down. Go on our way.
And you take them back to the hotel or whatever.
Put them in a car, put them in an Uber. But in this case, it appears that he was taking out an entrance that wasn't the main entrance out back of the establishment. So the other people, one would assume, didn't see him being escorted out. So, I don't know if it rises to the level of Luke Bryant's establishment assuming a duty, but they sure made it difficult for his friends and his colleagues to say, hey, let's make sure Riley gets back to the hotel.
And you can only
if
wonder
that's the way it went down.
how his friends are feeling right now.
Now, do they have any responsibility
Right.
just on...
They reported him missing 4 hours after he was kicked out of that bar.
No, you
No?
don't have an affirmative duty to rescue someone, help someone. We've talked about the Good Samaritan law time and time again, and that's when you assume a duty. But, the law does not require you to be a Good Samaritan or a hero or do the right thing in cases like this. But here's the really dangerous situation, because when someone is asked to leave a bar because they're intoxicated, they are in a state that they are most likely a danger to themselves or others. So, if you're the bar, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. You serve someone that is obviously intoxicated, then you're liable for injuries to a third person. But then you have the Riley Green. You ask him to leave. Now, here's what's interesting to me. Violating Luke Bryant's establishment's code of conduct, does that mean he was overtly intoxicated? Or was he acting out, doing things, saying things that were inappropriate or offensive to other patrons? It would be interesting to me to know what was the catalyst that caused them to, remove him from the
And we're not really
bar.
hearing that. We're not hearing any specifics about that, but his friends and family members have said he was a very gentlemanly, kind of a quiet soul, just a good kid.
Right.
So that's kind of the dynamic that you're faced with, with these bars, because if they overserve someone, they could, in theory, be liable for injuries to a third party. But if you assume a duty, then you've assumed a duty to that patron, other patrons, on making sure they're safe. They get home, they get here, they get there. So you really open Pandora's box.
And Greg, I think there's something also specific to this area. I mean, we know what Broadway is in Nashville, and that's why that drinking culture, party culture that exists. Does the city, does the Metro Nashville Police Department, do they bear any responsibility? I mean, the one that jumps out to me most recently is there was an officer who saw him passing by, and it's tough to say, it's dark. I don't know exactly. I wouldn't want to characterize what his behavior was like when he was encountering that officer.
And the officer was investigating something else.
Right. Now, does that
He
officer...
just said, hey,
is that officer under any obligation to aside from saying, hey, how you doing? Well, yeah, was he stumbling? Did he have his faculties about?
He didn't appear to be in the video.
It didn't look like that to me, but I'm not a police officer.
Right.
I guess that's the
At
trick.
points his gait, he was, as they say in every arrest warrant,
Unsteady gait.
Unsteady on his feet. I would assume a strong odor of alcohol.
We have the video
here's that
right
video
here
right
if you want to
here.
look at it.
Yeah.
And he communicates. I mean, So
No, in answer to your question, Jeff, no. But if you'd put him in the back of the cruiser and then he started aspirating or doing something, and we've had cases like that recently in Knoxville, and you don't take someone to receive medical care, yes, then you would have a duty of care.
but just walking down the sidewalk now.
But from what you've seen
and
there.
think about this, again, the law, and this is one of those sad cases that you're damned if you do, damned if you don't, because I mean, I have parents and students from UT, when they get arrested for doing the same thing, walking down Cumberland Avenue, why didn't they just leave my son alone? Well, it's a college campus. It's whatever. Well, in this instance, we're all going, well, why did you not arrest Riley Green for being publicly intoxicated?
It's
and then
strange.
helped him and put him
Yeah.
in the Metro City Jail,
But
and then let us,
It's
save
easy
his
to have
life.
It's a
2020.
Friday night on Lower Broadway. You'd have to have a much bigger jail.
Well, and there was one owner or worker at one of the smoke vape shops where some security video was captured. And he called Riley's mother and said, I am so sorry, or talked to her and was actually tearful and said, I see so many kids on a given night doing the same thing. I didn't think to alert anybody.
Interesting. A few years ago, I had the pleasure of having lunch with ex-Governor Bredesen, and it was shortly after he was the mayor of Nashville. And he said, a lot of people, when I wanted to develop downtown, wanted me to have an increased police presence. But he said, my theory is, in studying great cities, Philadelphia, Boston, whatever, you concentrate entertainment, and the more business, the more lights, the more activity, crime gets pushed to the wayside. Now, you're Riley Strain from Missouri. For every good part of town and good area, by definition, there's got to be a bad part of town or a not so good. So, if you're from Nashville, to turn left on Broadway towards Second, more lights, more business. Riley Green, if you take the wrong turn.
Strain,
Did I say Riley?
You did,
that's
Green, yeah.
Too much country music and not enough coffee today. But, and
He
there are
kept
also
going toward
reports,
the stadium.
Well, and there are also reports that he was seen walking by a homeless camp.
Yeah, two homeless
Not to
camps.
say that that by definition per se is violent, but again, he turned left when he should have turned right.
Yeah.
So that's the problem. And the other problem that we see, and Tennessee law is very harsh. It is hard to recover legally or have a duty when you voluntarily consume alcoholic beverages. And when you place yourself in a foreign city, a strange place you're unfamiliar, and you are intoxicated time and time again, I see it, you all see it, people make decisions they would not normally make, put them places where they are vulnerable, at risk, and now we're all speculating and conjecture, but when reports are, and this is everything about this case, it's just got a little weird edge to it.
Yeah.
His identification was found near the Cumberland River, but not by law enforcement.
By
some social
TikTokers.
media, by the TikTokers. So,
And it was his bank card.
Yeah.
And police continue to say, today, we do not suspect foul play.
Right.
But what does that say to you as a defense
well, to me
attorney?
as a defense lawyer, I wouldn't suspect foul play if I was the police. It screams foul play. Okay, when you have somebody that is missing, they're from Missouri, and their personal identification is found by a river in an isolated area, it does not speculate foul play. It screams something happened to Riley
What kind of
Strain.
scenario are you thinking, given by, you've done cases before. I mean, what are you thinking?
Here's a
Because we have the Murfreesboro woman who called and said, I feed the homeless all the time. I saw a homeless man wearing his shirt.
Right. I mean, here's kind of what happens. A lot of people, when you're out of town or whatever, you get robbed, you get rolled. I've had people tell me time and time again, I was somewhere and, I got robbed. I was somewhere I shouldn't have been. I had too much to drink, and they're embarrassed. And they don't call the police because, one, you're not going to find the person that rolled you or attacked you. But the problem is there's no record of the assaults and whatever. So I think what you find out is when you get farther away from the center, the apex of the business and the entertainment establishments, you're going to see a lot of robberies, strong arm activity, assaults that aren't reported. We see that with sexual assaults on college campuses all throughout the country. So, I think basically when somebody such as Riley, if we wanted to speculate, was in somewhat of a state of intoxication in unfamiliar territory, I think someone took advantage of his situation. That was a predator. And my prayers and thoughts are with his family, and I hope it turns out to be something miraculous, something very positive.
Wouldn't that be something?
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be something? Let's just say the guy said, hey, it's my spring break. I went on a bus and went to Daytona Beach, and he'll wake up a few days later and say, Mom and Dad, I'm sorry, I'm coming home. Hope for a scenario like that. But there is, being familiar with that part of Nashville, there are some places that I think one would not want to be alone and place himself in a position of vulnerability.
Yeah.
But what we try to do here is are there any legal answers? Are there any legal things? And at the end of the day, they're not. I don't think anybody's liable for this first party conduct.
Yeah.
I don't think Riley Strain intentionally overconsumed alcohol on spring break. I don't think the police officer that let him walk past, maybe doing him a favor, is legally liable. So it is just a very unfortunate situation. And again, let's hope that there's a miracle waiting down the road for Riley Strain and his family.
Let's hope so. And let's talk more about this at 5:30.
Let's do.
All right. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you.